Aloha world.
Hello, welcome everybody to Riding Tiger with Arijit, and I'm so happy that today I have got two more guests with us, and they are from an amazing background, which is medicine and nutrition. Wow. Okay, let me explain first what is Riding Tiger and why this show is called Riding Tiger. What is the relationship with tiger with business? As an entrepreneur, when you start your journey, you usually start a startup. That startup is a baby, a cub. You feed it with milk with the intention that eventually it will grow big and you will ride on the top of it. But when you start riding, because it's a tiger, there is a risk. You can't stop. If you stop, it's going to eat you. So you need to keep feeding it. And that feeding part is raw meat. And that raw meat is money. So either you earn money, keep feeding it, keep riding it, or you stop, the tiger gonna eat you, or you need to kill it. So either you need to kill your business, or probably you need to stop your business. And that's the reason we got this name called Riding Tiger. And I always say that entrepreneurship is always about riding tiger. Welcome to the show, Jack. Welcome.
Oh my God. What an analogy. That was beautiful. You know, I think about riding the tiger, and of course, you know, I think about Rocky. He never lost. So people that ride tigers, they got to have courage. Okay, entrepreneurs are, the spirit of entrepreneurialism is based on courage. Hey, Greg, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, Jack. And Arijit.
Haven't seen you since this morning. Okay.
And I was thinking, I've got what you need to help you ride the tiger.
That's a fact. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we had an amazing day yesterday with the president of the National Health Federation, and Gregory and his father, Dr. Richard Kunin, the godfather, the father with Linus Pauling of nutrition-based medicine, orthomolecular medicine, literally became a founding member. There you go. Thank you, Greg. Literally became a founding member of the Future of Medicine Foundation on February 9th of this past year because of the COVID horror and all of the people dying unnecessarily, just programming fear into our housewives all over the world. Okay. And they vote. Fear votes, horrible things happen. Okay. So Dr. Kunin takes this amazing legacy. I hope his son touches upon it today. We're going to be having a major insight into it on the 8th and 9th of November for the Future of Medicine Conference and Doctors Forum, where you're going to learn how to survive the horrors of mainstream medicine today and governments stealing your freedom in the arenas of medicine and a whole lot of others. Okay. But getting back to Dr. Richard Kunin, he passes away on the 23rd of February, about 15 days after he joins with us. And his legacy now lives, a lifelong legacy of being the father of nutrition-based medicine now lives in our foundation. And that spirit is actually with us today. Today is Dr. Richard Kunin's birthday. How old would he be today, Greg?
He'd be 89 today.
89.
That's correct.
You know, and those two numbers are the two most powerful numbers in the world of Asian culture. And I'm talking, you know, that makes us an isolated, segregated minority here in the United States, 380 million people, excuse me. We're talking like 4 billion people. Okay. So today is the most auspicious day, and to have this time shared, and coming off of yesterday, which was my birthday. I'm 75 years old now. Okay. So yesterday's meeting with Scott Tips was spectacular. And Scott, if you recall, those of you who saw yesterday's meeting, and you can get it on YouTube, Arijit will get you a link to it. I think it's a very valuable meeting for you all to see. He's the president of the National Health Federation. Gregory is the vice chairman of the National Health Federation. Both Dr. Kunin, Gregory's dad, Gregory and Scott Tips, as well as Arijit, are all members of the board of advisors and founders of the Future of Medicine Foundation. And if you were to ask any one of us, what is our dedication in the birth of this new foundation? in global markets. It is to perpetuate the National Health Federation. And you might go like this because you definitely may have not heard of it before, but that's all going to change. I just became the executive director of fundraising and marketing for NHF, which was established in 1955. The story that you're going to get on the 8th of November at the World Leader Summit, it's going to blow your mind. Take it to the bank. It's going to just change your life. You're going to have hope.
We'll have a great opportunity. We'll have a great opportunity to be able to talk about the advances in health and wellness. I mean, the sad part about this is the fact that there is a need for organizations like the National Health Federation and the Future of Medicine Foundation, and the fact that we're having to have this discussion at a time when everyone would be aware of the fact how important nutrition is in health and wellness. And here we are 50 years after my father showed that patients were malnourished, and we are still having this battle. But medical tyranny is a big battle that the entire world, I think we are seeing for the first time, the entire world is being dictated to by the medical industrial complex, which is sponsored by Big Pharma. And we are, to a large degree, losing our freedom and losing access. And that is why these organizations are so important, to be able to have control over our own bodies and our own health, and to be able to perpetuate science and move it forward. This has been a battle that I've been involved with since I was a child, seeing my father going through it, and some of the issues that he's had to deal with over the years.
Gregory,
talking about your father, I believe
Arijit,
yep.
Forgive me. I really am dying to let the audience know what the story is with NHF. Greg just opened up the can, and I've got to unleash it, so to speak.
Sure.
Every associate we're dealing with here, hold on, Gregory. Every associate focused here regarding the World Leader Summit and Riding the Tiger. When you met Scott Tips yesterday, here's what he's leading, and here's what's so valuable about the future of medicine and what it represents to humanity globally. Our focus is to nurture and support economically and in global markets awareness and education to the National Health Federation. It is the most powerful, it is the most influential advocate for health freedom policies, which directly affect 7 billion people around the world through the exclusive nature of its existence, representing the United Nations Codex Alimentarius Commission. Greg will speak about this. So there's only one agency on earth to protect our health freedom, our rights to nutrition, and it goes into agriculture, and it goes into all of our food resources around the world. So right now, you have an opportunity, really,
with regards to Codex. Most of the audience probably is not familiar with Codex, and
never heard of them.
It's very abstract. Some people may have heard the term, but this is really the whole concept of one world government with relation to everything that you consume and put in your mouth and anything you put on your skin. And roughly 180 nations are participating in this. And the distinction that the National Health Federation has is that we are the only health freedom organization in the world that actually has a seat at Codex. And unlike the other commerce departments and multinational corporations that are there, that are strictly thinking, looking at this as purely from a business perspective and maximizing
pharmaceutical companies,
we are there protecting the end user, the consumer, and protecting them from toxins and from some of these things, for example, like pesticides that have been banned here in the United States that are slowly trying to be brought back into the fold. Things like DDT, for example. So it's an important organization. It's an important meeting for us to participate in, to be able to be at the forefront of this governing body that's trying to set worldwide standards. This goes beyond nations. This is the whole world. So the National Health Federation and the work of the NHF is to ultimately to protect the consumer and the individual, and to provide security in your healthcare, access to dietary supplements, and access to nutrition physicians. My dad's whole medical career changed once he started to realize that many of the things he was taught in medical school were fallacies. And as soon as he started conducting his research in the early 60s, his entire medical career changed.
Amazing. Jack, you have more things to discuss? Else I will take the lead.
The only thing I can add to what Greg has just said is that there's no place on the face of the earth for anyone who cares about protecting the future of their children to turn to other than the National Health Federation. And saying that sounds like, well, that can't be possible. Do me a favor, do the research. There is a United Nations. It represents 200 and some governments in the world. They establish policies for every country on earth. And this is the only agency that defends our rights to freedom and choice in health and nutrition. And that's just a tip of the iceberg. Okay, I'm like the newest kid on the block here, dedicating my entire life and every resource. Kind of like you, Arijit, how you've opened the door up to a global community to learn about how to protect their children and their grandparents from COVID. Nobody has to die from COVID. This is the most insane moment in medical history, the last year and a half. Did it originate in the United States? Was it migrated into China? Did the Chinese even understand what they were dealing with at the time? Nothing is true in media today. Where you get the truth about how to protect yourself is from the guy named Greg Kunin and the president of excuse me, Greg, your father.
There are a number of people that are out there, I think, that have a pretty good idea.
Greg, none of them are on the board. None of them are on the board of directors of the National Health Federation. None of them are dedicated for 2 generations to Scott Tips, the leader.
I understand that. Yeah.
Wow. Look at that video.
You know, the exciting thing is that there is a medical strategy that's been developed over the last 50 years, which I'm very proud of the fact that my father had an integral role in the founding of orthomolecular medicine. As Jack pointed out, my dad collaborated with Linus Pauling, and my dad has the distinction really of being the first orthomolecular physician in America. And that's kind of an interesting story in and of itself, because it's not something that you would typically think that would happen in my dad's situation. My dad graduated medical school in 1955, came out of University of Minnesota, wound up at one of the leading hospitals in the world at Cornell New York Hospital in New York, came out west and did his postdoctoral fellowship at Stanford. And at the time, my dad was at that point, my dad was a board certified psychiatrist. He was dealing with rather significantly injured people. And remarkably, though, he had the insight to be able to ask one question, simply, is my patient malnourished? And it seems like a little thing when I think about it. Most people maybe wouldn't realize what a bold step that was. But in 1967, for a physician in the United States to even consider something like that was unheard of and was really considered blasphemy. But my father decided he would test out the theory and find out if there was anything to it. So he sent off some blood, did a basic rudimentary vitamin analysis, and what do you know? His patient was severely malnourished. You know, obviously you're not going to base a medical career on one, but then my dad got to 10, and then he got to 100, and then he got to 1,000, and we're talking 100%. 100%. What an incredible thought that sick people could be malnourished. And that changed my father's entire medical career. I mean, it's astonishing today when you think about it. That was almost, my dad graduated medical school almost 70 years ago. And, you know, not much has changed in terms of medical education in conventional medical schools about nutrition. When my dad was in medical school, his nutrition class lasted 1 hour. And of course, he would joke around about the fact that, wow, you could become an expert in nutrition in 1 hour. He mastered the subject. But his whole life turned once he realized molecules matter. And there's a toximolecular aspect that a lot of physicians work with in allopathic and pharmaceutical oriented medicine. And then there is the orthomolecules, the term meaning the right molecules to achieve optimum health based on those elements that control and regulate our body function. And once my father started doing the scientific research, it was very clear people were malnourished. And in fact, in 1980, my father wrote Mega Nutrition. And in that book, he pointed out the nutrition death sentence. And that is the belief that you have adequate nutrients out of the average American diet. And after years and years of testing, the reality is we have never seen anybody who was able to reach adequate nutrient levels. And people, of course, have gotten very confused about this. I mean, here in the United States, we have a guide called the Recommended Daily Intake, the RDI. And for years, it was known as the Recommended Daily Allowance. But if you went back about 50 years, it was originally known as the Minimum Daily Requirement, the MDRs. And that really made it a little bit more clear as to what it was all about. This isn't the optimum amount. 100% is not the optimum amount. This is just the minimal to keep you alive. It's a very interesting concept. I'll never forget, Linus Pauling was doing a TV interview with my dad, and I was there with him, and we started talking about this. And, you know, the allopathic world and pharmaceuticals are on nutrition are on polar opposites. On the allopathic side and in pharmaceuticals, we're looking to find out what is the maximum amount of a substance we can give you to keep you, to not kill you. On the nutrition side, we try to find out what's the least amount of a substance we can give you to keep you alive. They're polar opposites.
In 1970, we coined the words, "You are what you eat." It became a cultural revolution in FM radio.
Yes.
We gave birth to the first FM radio station, commercially successful in Cleveland. And his father was already out there programming us to, excuse me, you're not feeling well? Get a blood test to find out what nutrition you're deficient in, because every single human being that's dying is dying from a lack of nutrition. End of story. Don't argue with it. It makes no sense. We are what we eat.
Well,
you know?
It's also important to recognize when it comes to medicine, it's great that we have all this technology and there's some wonderful advances in terms of diagnostics. But, you know, when it comes to medicine, you cannot have good medicine if you don't put nutrition first.
Agreed.
And unfortunately, a lot of docs put nutrition last, if at all. And they're missing out. You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that statement, "You are what you eat." And of course, a lot of people gravitated towards that. And there's no question it has an impact. You know, you can clearly see when you go through dietary intakes and take a look at how people are, you know, what they're eating, what, you know, when you look at fats, proteins, carbohydrates, the kinds of foods that they're getting. But ultimately, it's even more than that. It's not what you eat, but it's what you're able to deliver to the cells. And that was a huge epiphany that my father had in the 1980s when he realized one significant thing, and that is nutrition is circulation, and circulation is nutrition. And let's face it, if you take a look at deaths around the world, I mean, the number one killer is heart attacks and stroke. And prior to a full occlusion, You just have to lower blood flow a little bit. And so my dad in the mid 80s started doing full spectrum coagulation studies on his patients. And that was eye-opening. We started, and in fact, it's interesting because it's got a tie-in right now with COVID. The people who are at risk for COVID tend to be clotters. They're at risk for major clotting disorders. And in fact, I wrote about it because there's already studies that are showing if you have elevated homocysteine, it is a marker for negative outcome with COVID.
Vaccines are delivering clot.
Here we are, you know, we're giving people spike protein, which induces cytokine storm, which induces the clotting cascade, and no one is being checked. I mean, what we found out in our research with clotting assessment was amazing. But I don't want to bore you guys.
No, Greg.
It's not
You
boring.
got to take this a step. You got to take this a step farther, okay? And
well,
you got to forgive us because we're so passionate, and you're like your association with the foundation is extremely valuable. But like all the rest of us, you're on a learning curve. Greg, Scott was on yesterday. Tips was on yesterday, and his focus was freedom, our protection, our rights. How many doctors right now, based on the research you have, which is significant, as the vice chairman of NHF, how many doctors who are curing illness using nutrition in the United States and around the world are going to prison for using nutrition to heal human beings?
Here's what's going on. It's not that they're going to prison. The system doesn't really work quite that way. But what the system has done is they've made it so that it's financially not very viable. That, you know, a lot of people say, well, if nutrition medicine is so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Well, the fact of the matter is, medicine in this country is controlled by a guild, by the medical boards of the different states, here, at least in the United States. You go outside of the United States, and in many places, orthomolecular is considered, you know, regular medicine. But here in the United States, anything that you do that is outside of the standard of care can be interpreted as quackery. And when it comes to billing, especially with our system here in the United States with regards to Medicare, if you false bill Medicare for a service that is not considered standard of care, you could be convicted of medical fraud, and it's a criminal offense. So a lot of medical doctors that are licensed by the state, they're nervous about doing this. You know, between the medical boards and the insurance companies and Medicare that are controlling, people start talking about universal health care here. Well, universal health care is fine, but you will only get this health care that's within this realm. A lot of other things that you'd like to find out, they're not doing. What's amazing is that I consider my dad's work is just common sense, in so much as you check the oil of your car. What we're doing is we're getting your biochemical fingerprint. We're identifying what's going on a deeper level. For the most part, conventional medicine, it has a limited tool chest, and it made up of limited laboratory assessment based on an incomplete blood count, a chem panel, and a urinalysis, where the orthomolecular approach goes a little deeper to find out really what you're made of. So my dad developed a strategy based on analysis based in three major areas: nutrition, pollution, and stress. So the nutrition's pretty straightforward. Are you malnourished? We do a simple vitamin mineral assessment to find out what's going on in terms of the fundamentals, the foundation. In about 1968, my father made the hair test famous and started looking into heavy metals in particular. Leaded gasoline was a pariah here, and a lot of people were poisoned. But then he went into lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, fluoride. He was running the whole gamut and identifying who was injured. And then, like I say, the big leap, I think, came in when my dad started realizing this nutrition circulation connection, and he started doing blood coagulation. And that really, I think, opened the doors for an understanding, because let's face it, roughly 60% of the population suffers from this low blood flow syndrome, whereby their blood gets very, very thick from whether it be homocysteine, fibrinogen, lipoprotein A, factors 2, factor 5, small dense LDL. And the mathematics of blood clotting, 1 and 1 doesn't make 2. For some people, 1 and 1 might make 30. And it's very interesting. You take all of our patients, put them on a spreadsheet, those with the most clotting at the top of the list, and those with normal blood viscosity at the bottom. Everyone at the top of the list has one thing in common. They're all disabled. They're all suffering from chronic disease. And unfortunately, if they don't find this information out, they will die prematurely. And it's incredible to me that people are having open heart surgery and they're worrying about cholesterol and basing their entire life on a number that, you know, cholesterol, essential for, it's essential for every cell of your body, you know, and here we are, you know, and let's face it, half the people that have heart attacks and strokes have normal cholesterol and perfectly clean arteries. Clotting factors have the ability to shut down the entire system. But prior to that, you just don't feel good. You have things like fatigue, aches and pains. We start telling ourselves, well, I'm getting old. Well, you know, yes, my father died this year. He was 88 years old. Incredible story. He had a 45-year history with cancer. He had numbers that were so off the charts, no one could believe it. He never did any conventional therapy. And up until about 2018, this 86-year-old was running down the golf course carrying his bag and hitting golf balls and having a full practice at his medical practice. I just think that, you know, we have this information. We have the ability to deliver it at a reasonable cost. It would be even more reasonable if more physicians were doing this. But like Jack was saying, a lot of physicians are very cautious about this because they don't want to lose their medical license and their livelihood. So
Greg,
if you're
Greg,
licensed,
do you know any doctors, Greg, that are in prison right now?
Because I don't know any doctors currently. I don't know any doctors currently in prison. The typically what's happened in the past is doctors who have been attacked, and my father was attacked. In fact, my dad, it's on our website at olaloa.com and drinkyourvitamins.com. In 1972, my father was on the cover of Prevention magazine, and he was talking about things like food is good, nutrition is helpful, poisons are bad. Okay, talking about the hair test and vitamin analysis and vitamin therapy. And interestingly enough, 2 days or 3 days after the article came out, my father was attacked by the medical board, the medical society, his hospital where he had privileges. And over his career, he went through 5 investigations. He won them all. He never had a loss. But what happens is a lot of physicians will sometimes temporarily lose their license. They will go financially. Some of them will go bankrupt, having to deal with the legal issues. And it's a lot of physicians just say, you know, it's just not worth it. And it's very important. I believe that this is divine, and that you have, and no one should be the master of your own body beyond you. And right now,
talking about the same, I'm just hopping in because
yes, please, by all means.
Yeah, we need to discuss more on nutrition.
Sure.
You know? And when I talk about human body, when we are discussing about nutrition and supplements, to be very honest and precise, I have seen people who are doing bodybuilding, who are doing fighting, who are sports, who are doing athletics. They take sometimes medicine. And as all of us understand, vitamins are not produced inside our body that much. We need to consume vitamins from external sources. Those are available in normal food. Those are available probably in our Ayurveda, in old science. So I would love to understand your perspective from the same. Why exactly we are going for chemical way of producing not many medicines? Why can't we stick to supplements and food and nutrition? What's the main cause of it? What do you think?
Well, first and foremost, there are a number of things. All of us are eating to satisfy individual biochemical needs. Each one of us is different based on two factors: lifestyle and genetics. But without one single vitamin in your system, life ceases to exist. Just one vitamin. Vitamins are considered vital. You must get them from an external source. And we find that also now people are starting to become kind of aware of the fact that there's also a phenomenon known as gene mutation. Some people have better genetics than others. We've all heard that story. Oh my goodness, that guy was 90 years old. He drank whatever he wanted. He ate terribly. He smoked cigarettes. He was healthy as an ox, lived to be 90, 100 years old. But then you see somebody who has interferences with their biochemistry. People, for example, a classic example, I mentioned these clotting factor cases. Homocysteine has played a big role in my life. In fact, it's why we developed the Olaloa product. And the extreme cases of homocysteine are known as homocystinuria, where their blood gets so thick, within 4 hours, they have a full-on occlusion and they're dead. Homocystinuria typically, by the time they're 20 years old, they're dead. This is individual chemistry and genetics at play. Classic example, you take a couple, put them into a toxic environment. One's passed out, the other one is up and about and is ready for a party. Again, biochemical individuality. And this is what we've been trying to uncover for the last 50 or so plus years in my dad's medical work. And the more laboratory you run, the more detailed information you get, the more common you see, especially when it comes to sick people. People are malnourished. People don't know how to eat properly. Here in the United States, there are a lot of people that are used to eating prepared foods and processed foods, chemical additives. It's interesting. You spend some time outside of the United States where people have a greater respect for food, and you could see a great difference, a significant difference. But certainly, I think it's essential if you're going to take your health seriously, and certainly if you have a health challenge, you want to find out what's going on with your biochemistry. And we have the tools to do this. It's very simple. Before you go down the road of cut, burn, and poison, I mean, that's pretty much what conventional medicine has to offer. They're giving you Band-Aids, chemical Band-Aids to cover up a symptom, but they're not finding out what's really going on. The system is a little skewed here. In many respects, they go, well, I've seen people who have come out of a physical and they're given a great bill of health, but they're very, very sick people. And they're not getting the answers. So a lot of people start to think, my God, I must be going crazy. There's got to be something wrong with me. Everything seems to be checking out, but they're not getting the right data. They're not getting this information. So the orthomolecular approach, what's important about it is that we're able to document it. We're able to see in black and white, this is what's going on. You're malnourished, you're toxic, you've got interferences with the methylation cycle. I mentioned methylation because homocysteine is a big piece of that. And for the last 20 years, my focus has been on supporting this incredible pathway, which is the key to health. This has become the fundamental foundation of how we assess our patients by identifying what's going on in this cycle, because this cycle is responsible for more biologic end products than anything else in your body. Hundreds of products are made through this system, which control and regulate heart function, circulation, digestion, detoxification, immunity, brain function, and energy regulation in the body. And if this system is not working very well, you're in trouble.
Agreed.
And so we've been at the forefront of this longer than really anybody else. And of course, really what I'm saying to the audience, I mean, there are all these big words. You don't have to worry about that. The important thing is to know that someone knows a little bit about what they're talking about. But what's important is really when you get down to it, this is an adaptive system. Our bodies are able to adapt. And if they have if they have those key elements that control and regulate this body function, they're able to get you through the rough spots. Certainly, you don't want to be, this is not a time in history where you want to be malnourished.
True, true, totally agree. When we talk about detoxification, there are simple methods like probably you can use a few bit of carrot, honey, ginger, couple of garlic and tulsi, and you boil it with water, maybe 2 liters. You consume that water maybe for half a day with an empty stomach, with a couple of yoga things and all, and then you get a basic amount of detoxification. And there are a lot of different methods which I was reading, which I was probably executing in my own body because of my workouts and fighting. And I can see a lot of more people who are heavy weight lifter. They're dying in an early age because they are consuming a lot many.
Well, that's very interesting.
I want your comments on that.
Well, I would love to comment on it because oftentimes what I find is that a lot of athletes will go to extremes in general. They'll perform when they're injured and they get focused, almost hyper-focused on the basics of excess protein, creatine. They're thinking just muscle, muscle, muscle. Oftentimes, in the most extreme cases, you'll find, for example, bodybuilders who will wind up, they will wind up doing excessive proteins, and all they're doing is killing their kidneys. So you'll see bodybuilders who will go into that. That's very interesting, Arijit. I'm fascinated to know. I started doing Kempo when I was 8. I did Kempo, Shotokan. I spent 20 years doing Wing Chun. And I'm curious about what you've been studying.
Well, I did Taekwondo and I actually do workout. That's not always heavy weightlifting, but some people in my gym call me as a Hulk. Even though I don't look like Hulk, I don't have desire to have those kind of Hulk body. I just become fit and I walk a lot. That's the reason I go to gym, to become fit and have a healthy body so that the blood flows in the body in a proper way. Because every time, as you know, as a technology and finance person, I'm in front of the computer, like for 12 hours to 14 hours in a day. So it's important for me to go for 1 hour gym to 2 hours gym, and then maybe walk, maybe do some cycling to relax my body, and then do a little bit of,
well, the other thing, here's the other thing. So it's very common. I'll hear from people who will say, well, I don't need vitamins because I'm working out. But, the need for nutrients, the more demands you put on your body physically, the greater the need for nutrient support. As you're working out, you're creating free radicals and you're creating oxidative stress. So, as I've said oftentimes in the past, the greatest risk with vitamins is not getting enough.
Yep.
and so
it's always actually 80% of your nutrition and 20% of your workout is always like that.
Well, and again, delivering the nutrients to the cells. When you have low blood flow, if you have a family history of heart attack, stroke, cancer, you have to be aware of the of coagulation, because when you lower blood flow, you're lowering the nutrient delivery to the cells. In essence, what's happening to these people is their cells are being suffocated. So you'll see people, for example, who get injured and they remain chronically injured. The inflammation just gets progressively worse. They can never heal the damage. Whereas, you know, again, we made it easy. So one of the things I did, I'll tell you, this is very selfish for me. I started this when my son was just 2 years old. And I realized that our patients revolted and rebelled against a bunch of pills. To be able to get an adequate nutrient support program going, you literally have to take a handful of pills. It's a struggle. Most people, and not only that, if you take a look at dietary supplements, you know, a lot of them, the tablets are the worst. They don't break down. They go right through you. You're lucky if you get 10% of it. Capsules are a little bit better, but the problem with capsules is they can't be compressed as tightly. So you have to take more capsules. This is the equivalent of a dozen vitamin pills. You're getting 36 vitamins, minerals, amino acids, digestives, electrolytes, osmolytes. The vitamin C in our product, as it mixes and complexes, you're getting mineral ascorbates, mineral complexes, and it becomes buffered vitamin C. It's also supporting the most important biochemical process in the human body, as I mentioned earlier, methylation. So there's some really exciting things that happen when you take an Olaloa packet. And actually, what's been interesting is that people tell me, I've taken vitamin supplements before, I never felt any different. People take this product and, you know, they say it's incredible. I've never felt this good. I've got people who are saying, well, I don't want to toot my own horn, but the fact is people recognize something is in here. That's what's so important about molecules. I mean, you talk about detoxification. I mean, number one rule when it comes to detoxification is avoid the poison. Because let's face it, it doesn't take too much. You have the right molecule, a few molecules of cyanide is all it takes, right? And it can be enough to lights out. And of course, you know, if your system is working properly, if you have an ability to make intracellular glutathione, the master antioxidant of the body, you can handle that oxidative stress. You can handle more of those exposures to poison. Some people a lot of people don't even realize that they've been exposed to toxins. I mean, synthetic carpets are loaded with formaldehyde. Lead paint is all over the place, and it detoxifies lead. Here in the United States, we had situations in Michigan where the whole communities were being poisoned with lead. You know, here we're putting
fluoride in our water.
Fluoride in the water supply. Here we're putting industrial waste. We're putting into the water supply. You go to China, they've got fluoride toxicity all over China, where they've got these wells. The wells are coated in concrete. The concrete's loaded with fluoride. It's one of the highest components of fluoride. And so, you know, they coat the wells with borax.
Hey, Greg, hold on. You know, this takes me back to Arijit's question in December 13th last year. And it comes from an association of friends he had. I think we had a very powerful effect on them. Okay. The question is, and you guys talked about, which I think you missed the mark, to be frank with you. I work out, I'm healthy. Excuse me? Okay. I hear that one. Okay. Here's the one that makes me sick to my stomach, because I'm the funeral director's son. We've got $14 million worth of funeral homes, and I established a network in 1960s when I was burying all my friends dying from lead poisoning, catching bullets in Vietnam. Okay, different kinds of lead poisoning delivered to us by our government and our agencies, right? Wonderful, eh? Okay, I just want to get this back on the table because Arijit blew my mind with it. Scott Tips addressed it. And oh, by the way, Greg, I don't mind saying absolutely that there's quite a large number of doctors who are in prison because they chose simply to do the right thing to save their patient. And when the AMA and the medical journal, they find out about it, they put doctors in prison. And I'm sure you know that. I just wonder why you wouldn't address it. But wait, let me finish. Let me finish, my brother.
Yeah.
Let me finish. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's you and Arijit last year on the 13th, and they're going, well, we eat good food. Now, when you think about the National Health Federation and its focus on nutrition in supplementation, our rights, nutrition in food, nutrition in agriculture, you start to see how the industries and the government are all linked to deliver what nutrition you get in your refrigerator in the food you eat.
Agreed.
Corporate agriculture has, I mean, I take food, I spent about $250,000 just taking broccoli, like whatever, to the Nova Labs, give them the $40, and they come back with, hey, Jack, this is 40 years ago. Smells like a broccoli, looks like a broccoli, tastes like a broccoli, single urea, no minerals, nothing in it. Dr. McKee said to me just about 8 months ago, well, they have somehow figured out how to reduce all of the anti-carcinogens in our vegetables. You want to get anti-carcinogens? You got to go to the health food store. You got to know what the hell you're doing. You got to, and then you got to take a supplement like Ololo.
Well, like I said, I'm all for macronutrients.
You eat. You're not
food.
healing.
I love food. But in reality, when it comes to micronutrient support, you got to go out of your way to do it. You're absolutely right. And the nice thing about what we've done, I mean, to put this into perspective, there's 1,000 milligrams of betaine and 1,000 milligrams of glycine in this packet. To put that into context, you would have to eat approximately 3 pounds of beets to equal 1 packet of Ololo.
That's no joke.
And that's why, you know, food is great, but like I say, the greatest risk with supplements is not getting enough. And vitamins are certainly in short supply. The nice thing about a product like this is that you read the label and you know what's in it. Whereas when you go to the market and you see those, you know, the broccoli or those pretty tomatoes, and you realize they look pretty, but there's nothing in it, or significantly reduced. And just being able to find out who's got, you know, quality farm product out there. Sometimes, I mean, here in California, we're pretty fortunate. In Northern California, there are farms and agriculture right here. You can get your neighbor who's growing it. And I think that, you know, we're starting to see that there's a whole resurgence. People are starting to grow their own food because they just don't trust what's coming out in the markets these days.
Eating food does not deliver nutrition today. The job that we have at NHF is to start at the root, the seed. I mean, I'm dealing with corporations right now in the chocolate business, World Chocolate Inc., by example, right? You know what their entire focus is? You know what their entire focus is? Nutrition located in chocolate is one of the highest deliverer of antioxidants. Okay. But that's one food they haven't destroyed the dynamic of. Okay. But you can only locate it on West Africa. Okay. So the idea of our job at NHF, and the reason why everyone listening should become members of NHF, is simply this. There is no one fighting for your rights in agriculture, which leads to your dinner table, the quality of your food, which literally, if they get the job done they want to do, there's going to be no way to access nutrition to heal disease. And the only thing that heals disease is nutrition. Nothing else heals disease. Nutrition is, let us take the 2 categories of nutrition that I'm familiar with, and I see preventing certain people from ending up in the funeral home or putting all those people in the funeral home. And the fundamental...
Well, I think we can all agree when as we discuss this, that it just seems to be common sense that you would think that people would have access to these things, have access to quality foods, have access to quality physicians.
They have killed it.
Natural medicine.
Can't get it.
Access to dietary supplements. I think a lot of people, certainly here in America, I think
as soon as we lose access to nutrition,
a lot of people, I think, would be surprised to learn that there are people in Washington right now who are having discussions about whether or not supplements should be legally sold over the counter, that whether or not the amount of dietary supplement that you can get in a single dose, like 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C or 100 micrograms or even 1,000 micrograms of vitamin B12, maybe shouldn't be allowed. And of course, even ingredients being now starting to be discussed about. You know, we just had a big one recently where N-acetylcysteine, there's now a gray area about this amino acid that we've been using and selling in our medical clinic and in our products for the last 40 years. And there's been some rumblings that the Food and Drug Administration here wants to brand this no longer as a supplement, but that it should be a drug, that they recognize it as a drug. I think a lot of people would be very, very surprised that these battles are going on. And what's happening?
Can you read it? Can you read it,
yes,
Greg?
that's my.
No, that's Olaloa.
Vitamins are in jeopardy.
Right now, for the first time in history, audience, become members of NHF. It's your only tool to survive this threat. And
Absolutely.
Greg is not hitting the nail on the head, although he wants to give you the story that gets you to appreciate the value.
Certainly.
But the governments are now moving to block your ability to get nutrition. And it's never happened before. It's happening now. Thank you, COVID. Thank you. The only thing that cures COVID is nutrition.
Well, let everyone know if they want more information, I encourage them. If you want to get a great magazine, if you want to learn about these issues, and if you want to protect your rights, go to thenhf.com and sign up, become a member. It's a means to protect your rights and your freedom and possibly save your life. And it's a serious. These are serious issues, and the NHF is in a position to be able to fight for you and protect you, not just here in the United States, but worldwide.
Every country,
all over the world, we are fighting to protect the citizens of the earth. It's and of course, you know, we want to make sure that people have access to supplements and have the freedom to have access to these supplements, as well as being able to have access to dietary supplements. And so there are serious issues that we're facing right now. And I've been at the forefront of this, like I say, since I was just a kid. I'm frankly shocked. I never in my wildest imagination would imagine that 50 years after my father started proving that people are malnourished and that proving that these things work, these means of treatments, that we would still be having this argument. I mean, we're literally arguing that food is good, nutrients have beneficial value, and that you should have sovereignty over your own body. I mean, it's crazy. The good news is that we don't have less information now 50 years later. We have a lot more. And there's more information related to nutritional science than there is with all the pharmaceutical drugs combined. That's something that a lot of people just don't realize.
The libraries in the International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine, available to everybody. The libraries in the National Health Federation, available to everybody. But no media will let you know about it.
Well,
Arijit,
fortunately...
hold on, Greg. Arijit, what you're doing and what you kicked off with us on December 13th, the World Leaders Summit, what your position is and your dedications to it, to develop the entrepreneurial experience, the whole focus on education, that this does contribute in the most unique way to educating a globe of humanity in direct association with the world's only global agency to protect the most fundamental right we have, freedom. I'm talking to a guy in India. It just happens to be the world's largest democracy on earth. Okay, we cannot afford to risk what we're risking in America right now because of ignorance in action and no one having a civics class in a public school in the last 35 years. You got to be kidding me. So ignorance is a tidal wave. World Leaders Summit is an educator.
So let's talk about this in World Leaders Summit instead of today, and wait for the November summit itself, and we'll discuss more about what's going on and how probably we can have a lucrative platform to check out and handshake.
Well, I'll tell you, let me just say one thing. One of the exciting things that's happening right now is the fact that when you take a look at visits that are happening with physicians in the United States, I think the numbers now are over half the patient visits in the United States are to non-conventional therapists. So they're looking into naturopaths, they're looking holistically, they're looking into the orthomolecular functional medicine. And that tells me that there is a tidal wave of people who consciously are aware and want to make sure that these freedoms are there for them.
What we did to the environment in 1970, establishing the Environmental Protection Agency, thanks to the advocacy of the C-suite corporations. In those days, they were run by older men who suffered the Second World War. They knew the value of nature and protecting it. Okay, today, my generation, who initiated that cultural revolution, established the movement, Earth Day, millions of people becoming active. And now today, here we are. Excuse me, Man's Inhumanity to Nature was killing our children in 1970. Man's Inhumanity to Animals in 1872 in New York City, when they established the Animal Protection Agency, was harming our environments and our children's lives, our lives, okay? Today, it's man's inhumanity directly to man. And World Leader Summit, and exactly who we are globally since 1955, the National Health Federation, we represent the ability to cure the problem. Not only cure every disease known to man on Earth, but to cure the problems of our social illness that would permit food and agriculture and freedom of choice to be completely eliminated.
Well, certainly we're able to deliver a much better quality of life.
I'm sure.
We can do that for our children. I got 8 children, 4 adopted.
Jack, not gonna... I think we should hold all these information for the summit itself.
The 8th and 9th.
Yeah, 8th to 9th. And
I'm looking forward to it, Arijit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Looking forward to meet all of you guys. And this is just a trailer and a teaser for last 1 hour, what you have seen so far, hearing so far. So stay tuned with us, stay blessed and be healthy. Keep in touch. We'll be back soon with an amazing summit, which is happening November 5th to 9th with 120 plus speakers. Probably will cross 130 this time with massive amount of participants. Thank you so much for being here.
Tomorrow morning, Dr. Gonzalez. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Gonzalez. Dr. Gonzalez, Orthomolecular Medicine. He is on the board of advisors. Listen, folks, Arijit is brilliant. You have just experienced the first 3 podcast series to promote a major global event on the 8th and 9th. We need your support, and we'd like to have you show up tomorrow at the same time for Dr. Gonzalez. You had Scott Tips yesterday. You have Greg Kunin today. These are world leaders in nutrition. And you have Dr. Gonzalez, who is someone who is the Hall of Fame of the Orthomolecular International Society of Orthomolecular Medicine. You're getting the best of it, and we should all thank Arijit. Hey, Greg, let's give it to him.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Bye.
See you tomorrow.